you feel sometimes overwhelmed, anxious, and feel like you can't regulate your emotions. And you've tried everything from breathing and meditation and other things, but it seems to be so hard. Well, today we're going to talk about how the environment influences our emotional state, because it's not just passively, it actually has an impact on how we feel, how we think actually as well. And there's a lot of things we can do to feel better and live longer if we change our environment to a more suitable situation for us. Here's already the hint, right? It's everybody's different, so you got to figure it out. But we're going to share a couple strategies and how it impacts us and what we can do. Welcome. I'm Heike Fallon. I am a personal performance coach, and I help my clients to lead them with themselves from within for their health, well-being, and longevity.
Awesome. Hello. Hi, I'm Shannon Passalacqua, and I am a coach as well, and I help women heal after miscarriages. And I think this will be a very suitable conversation for that.
Absolutely. And it impacts all of us because we're all humans with a brain, and um we all live in environments and may or may have not been very aware of it. And so I want to start with a little story because everybody always laughs about that. When they asked me why I moved from Germany to the United States, I said I wanted to live somewhere where you can walk barefoot all year round. So it's not too hot, not too cold, because I don't like being super cold. But also, one fact was that I was just tired of people walking around grumpy in the from like fall to the winter months, because it's just this gray. I'm from northern Germany. We get some snow, but not that much. And it's more that rainy, gray and gray kind of weather. And it seems like everybody's grumpy. So
Interesting.
and people laugh about it, and I didn't realize until I shared that more frequently that I'm like, you know what, the weather does impact your mood. And we do know that, like if you live in more the northern parts where the days aren't as long with daylight, it does impact our mental health, our well-being. And there are ways to use light, special light lamps to create basically longer light for your well-being. But that is one component, 100%, that impacts our emotional state.
Yeah, for sure. I notice when winter starts, when spring starts happening, my emotions definitely change. I have a good friend who she is such a summer person, and you can tell like when summer comes, she like comes alive. But during the winter, she's like,
Yeah, and
but
and
it's
it's not
interesting.
everybody, right? I mean, it impacts people differently. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just still running around smiling and trying to have a good.
So I guess my question is, and you, I think you're reading a book about this. What is more important in your environment? The people you surround yourself with, or the area that you live, or the environment in your living situation, like, in your bedroom or your house? Like, is there one thing that's more important, or is it all important?
I think that's a great question. And the answer is always depends on. There is no one more than the other. It's just really depending on what impacts you more. And that has to do with how our brain functions, because our brain constantly scans the environment, constantly takes information in. And some people are more sensitive to certain information like sound or light, the light exposure. I'm somebody, I grew up in a house with big windows, and I need light. I feel not good if I'm in a dark room with a lot of artificial light. I need natural light, and I've noticed that for me. So that is a key factor. But the all of the areas matter. So our environment, on how our senses take the information. When I'm saying senses, it's also how an environment smells, how the air smells. And
Mm,
when I get out in the woods and I get the smell from the
yeah,
woods, it just feels so good. It may also, for me, feel so good because I grew up next to a forest. And so for me, there's probably also memory coming up that are from, childhood positive memories that we spent in the forest playing and having fun, probably comes with that as well. So it really depends on your history. It depends on how what your brain connects with it memory wise, and or traumatic incidents
yeah,
can also have the opposite effect, right? A certain smell of, like, oftentimes like something that smells burning can remind somebody of an event that happened where they were in a car crash or something like
right.
that, and that can trigger it in a more negative way. So key is that all the senses, and that is your eyes, but also smell, even taste, because you might taste the salty air, if you're living close to an ocean. Um, all senses, touch also has an impact. So for some people, it can be they don't like the dry air. They do better with moist air. All of that, the sensation on the skin matters too. So all of those matter. But as you said too, yes, it does matter too, the environment, the people we with. Um, One more and less, it just matters, I think. Have you set up your environment already in a way that's more positive for you? And have you set the environment with the people that you're connecting with in your best way? So it's kind of all of them make
Yeah,
all of them have an impact on us as humans.
it's interesting because when I think of like, I know some people who they love the beach. They love going to the beach. They love going to, Hawaii or whatever. And I hate the beach.
I don't
And
hate it, but I cannot sit there very long. Like,
no, I don't like,
not my
I don't
thing,
like anything about it. I don't like,
buddy.
like I could deal with sand, but and my husband and I are the same way. Put me in a mountain
I'm in the
and I could go on a hike. I mean, I go on hikes so long that have to remind myself to turn around.
Yep.
And I could do that nonstop. And I love the smells. I love the feeling. I'm not huge on dry weather, so I don't like that on the skin. And I lived in Colorado for when I went to college, and I didn't like that. But everything else, like I love. But put me in a a beach town, and I'm like,
Yeah, no,
it's
and
not relaxing to me.
I'm with you. I'm a more mountain person. I could sit on top of a mountain for hours and hours. I cannot sit at the beach for hours and hours.
That
But
stresses
again,
me out.
that's but the thing is, different essentially all of it is the input coming in, right? Like we said, the smell and those type of things, but it's also um, all related to chemical releases, right? Depending on what we're doing, certain chemicals get released. So we do know when you're in like natural light, for example, that boosts your serotonin production. And so that's helpful for mood. And it might be, for me, sitting at the beach, for example, what I notice is like it's that constant heat, right? Even if you're under the umbrella, that's
Yes,
uncomfortable for me, right? And that
yes.
kind of, I think, shifts the needle versus on the mountain, you usually don't have it like that. So it may be the light, it might be, the temperature that you, or again, how dry the air is or something. But the key is that oftentimes it's also related to those chemical releases. And so that is also the case for when we're interacting with other people, right? There's a certain, when we're feeling connected, um, chemical releases happening that make us feel that more bonding or empathy, and that can make us feel better in general. So all of that is a key for well-being, and it, depending on what you need most or where you get the certain balance of, it's not a balance of the chemicals, but let's say you're very stressed, a certain type of chemical release might help you better than others. So it's really about figuring out and paying attention to what you like and what helps you to either calm down or make you feel better.
Well, I think there's also um, I'm learning right now about attachment styles in
Mhm.
my psychology classes. And I think some of that also pertains to how you grew up, how you were raised when you were younger, and what type of attachment style you had. Like, whoever was caring for you, how they took care of you and how you bonded. Um, and I think that
Oh, that's very,
plays, yeah, there's four different attachment styles, and there's secure attachment style where you feel comfortable bonding with people. And I'm not going to go into the other ones because I don't understand them just as well. But there's disorganized, and there are two others I can't remember right now. But it depends on like how you felt when whoever was raising you, like how attached you were to them. And I wonder how that plays a role later on. Like I know the psychology of how it plays a role, but I'm wondering what that has to do with um, the chemicals that are released. And if you don't feel comfortable um, being bonding with another human, if you feel like you don't feel safe doing that, if you don't feel safe being vulnerable, I wonder how that plays a part in all of this, your
oh,
environment.
I am pretty sure it does just because of the brain keeps memory
Mhm.
and memories are very much connected to emotions. And so definitely what we experience as from those attachment forms, but even what we how we in general experience, especially the first years, even in
Yeah,
pregnancy, while
yeah,
in the belly, there's studies that already show impact on um, behavior and well-being in general. So it's definitely early wired. That doesn't mean it can't be changed if you
right.
want
There
to
is,
change something, but it definitely, I'm pretty sure it does have an impact on what we tend to gravitate to when we choose our environment.
well, and if you have an insecure attachment style where you don't feel comfortable, bonding with other people or getting close with other people, then that's going to affect who you surround yourself with, and it's going to affect your whole environment. And it's almost like this cycle that never ends, and you have to be aware of it in order to change it. So, it's the nature versus nurture. And
Yep.
I think they're pretty much figuring out that it's like 50-50. Nature and nurture both play a big role. Um, and you can change, how you react. If you grew up one way, you can work on that, but you have to be aware of it.
Yeah, the creating and learning the awareness is for pretty much everything the first step. Even
Yeah.
the one way to, for example, figure out if an environment is more positive for you or not is by literally walking in a space and paying attention to how do you feel? Like how does it make you feel calming? Does it make you feel
Mhm.
irritated? Like I said, if I walk into a darker room, it immediately feels heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I walk into the room where there's big windows, natural light, and a view, it feels very calming for me. And so
I
it,
wonder who feels comfortable in a dark room.
um, probably people that are very sensitive to light. So there's
Mhm.
people that, especially if people which, since I work with people that may have had concussions too. So if you had a concussion and you're very light sensitive, or you've had long stress, chronic stress, people tend to be some light sensitive, noise sensitivity, like being in spaces with a lot of people and crowd and noise levels
Yeah,
getting
I don't do
here
well with that.
that need to get out. I don't do well, for example, in like conference rooms with the artificial, like those headlights, those
Yeah,
I do
the
not.
track lighting.
It's fine for a while, but if I have to sit there for like all day, I can tell how it impacts me. So
Yeah,
it's
when we go to conferences and we're sitting in those rooms, I have to leave every half hour to hour and go outside and walk around because it just affects me. And like I can be surrounded by the best people and be
yeah.
having a great time, but I have to go outside.
Yeah, and it does it and 100%. So the one option is to change the environment you're in temporarily, like you figure it out, okay, I got to just step outside, breathe,
Yeah,
and be in a different environment. I use yellow glasses, so yellow tinted glasses for particularly when it's the that bright overhead lighting works for me. But yeah, it's about figuring out recognizing and being aware of how the space influences you. Is it it can be even the ceiling height too.
yeah,
For and it can be there's not one bad and one is good, right? And it's not always that, let's say, um, high ceiling is more really for creativity and abstract thinking, but that doesn't mean you need that all the time. Like a smaller room and more helps you to focus, for example, more and may feel you more um grounded and stable at that moment, right? But
that's what I was gonna say. I wonder if it's more secure. It's almost like a
yeah,
cave, and you're
yeah,
like,
and so that can be very helpful at times, and at times you need the more open space. So it's not like it's always just one. It's for certain times, maybe different environments you need. And what I find fascinating too, um, I've read up on that for a while now. I'm not going to go deep in details on it, but how color impacts us,
yes,
different color. And because certain colors can be more soothing or can be more calming, and others can be more vibrant. And depending on what the room is used for, you may want to consider certain colors for certain
certain rooms.
rooms. Yes.
Yeah, supposedly you're not supposed to have like
Not
yellow
not
in your
just your
room.
not just your favorite color, because your partner or other family members may not like that color because of how it influences them.
Yeah,
So it's not just about because again, everybody's different, and that comes down to when you're living with multiple people in one household to figure out, how to have a space that where everybody feels comfortable in.
yeah, that's interesting. I want to touch on the people you surround yourself with because
Very good.
I am so sensitive to who I surround myself with and so sensitive and notice when my energy is drained and when it is not. And like it's fascinating to me because it's hard to surround yourself. It's hard to find people who are going to raise your energy. And I don't know. It's a weird thing for me because I do have some good friends who they do raise my energy, but some who lower my energy, and I have to be really aware of that and have to know like going into certain situations where I know I'm going to be drained.
And it may
Um,
depend on also that day, right? Like how you
yeah,
feel. Like
yeah,
for me, it's
yes.
very much like if I slept well, I can handle
Well,
anything, right?
and if
But
I'm in the mood to be super social, then I will surround myself with the people who are, social and we're going to go out. But there are some times where I'm like, I am not in the mood to be social. I want to be with someone who's calming.
yeah,
Um,
can't call
but
them up
it's
and go, oh, sorry, can't do today.
right. Well, and it's also like it's hard to find people who are going to challenge you. And, this is going to sound cuckoo California-ish or whatever, but like raise your vibration level.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to find those people. So like, how do you find
Well,
people who are going to do that for you?
so just to kind of throw out on that just very quickly, we do have what's called mirror neurons,
Hmm.
and what that is we pick up on other people's
Yes.
mood or just the facial expression, the way, sometimes somebody looks at you in a certain way and you go like, what's wrong? And they may just go like, I'm just tired,
Yeah.
and they just don't have the energy for a smile or something like that. It does impact us, and it is because it is neurologically how we wired when we are
Mhm.
with people. We pick up the positive, but also the negative energy and mood that somebody may have. What I find fascinating about that too, and that's the book I'm currently reading, is that our environment, just where we're living, has an impact who we surround ourselves with, because you
Yeah.
surround yourself with your neighbors and the people in your community, and those are the ones, the pool you choose from.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
so it does depend on what neighborhood you live and what kind of people live in that neighborhood. And because they all influenced by that as well. And
Well,
culturally too. The culture plays a role too.
but you also can't just pick up and move because you feel
Yeah.
like you're not surrounded by.
Nope. Nope.
So it
Sure.
is, it's interesting. And my husband and I talk about that where, I part of me wants to move because I don't like everything about our environment. I'll just leave it at that. We have made some good connections with people who are a little more down to earth and understand yeah, we have the same values.
Yep.
Um, but people can't just pick up and move because they're surrounded by negative people or because they don't like the way that, I think of people who are, you know, who don't have a lot of money or and are kind of like stuck in certain situations or living situations and they can't leave.
Yep.
So what
So,
do you do in that situation?
well, I think yes, you cannot go like, I'm not surrounding myself, I'm not gonna,
I don't like
all of
this
them
neighborhood.
check,
It's time
check,
to
check
go.
on. You can't do that. I always look at it, there's a value in almost everybody out there. It's just sometimes you choose certain people to do certain things with because that works well, and you choose others for others, like you said, like, okay, if I know I want to go out, this is fun to do with these people, and with the other friends, it's great to just sit and have a calmer evening. So you can intentionally choose who and how you spend time with. I think too is going a little bit and exploring new different areas. Even if you live somewhere, you may have.
Mhm.
So I used to, for example, rock climb, and that whole rock climb community were total different people,
Yeah.
right? It's a certain common thing. They all value nature. They were all, there's, you can find groups, I think, that align with your values or something that you're doing, right? And you
Yeah.
can find it that way. So sometimes it requires to maybe start something new,
Yeah.
just to oh, that's effort. That can be fun too. But
It does take effort though, and
it does, but
that's a good point because sometimes it can seem overwhelming. And even
correct.
though it's going to help raise your vibration level and help you eventually, it does take
It does.
effort
It
and
does.
energy.
It does. And I noticed too, like I've lived here now for what, 26 years or something. Then you kind of get into your routine, right? And
Yeah.
and you kind of, it does take more effort to start something new,
Yeah.
you know,
And
but,
and like I noticed
once you
after
start,
we
once you start that first step, oftentimes the kind
yeah,
of ripple effect comes, right?
but
And
it's getting past that barrier, and it's like every time we get off a call or every time I get out of class, I always feel so much better. But beforehand, I'm like, oh God, this is so draining. Like even before we talk, I'm like, okay,
it does
it's like
take
I'm tired. But when we get off, I'm like, oh, I feel like
Yeah, but It does take effort. And it's not, but that's anything, any personal development, anything when we're working on ourselves, that doesn't mean we have to constantly work on it, that we constantly have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone and do new things. And I always say just stick to one thing that you're focusing on, whatever you're doing, right? So
Yeah.
you can't do multiple things. You can't be doing house projects or some other massive things, or if you have a lot going on within the family, raising kids or whatever it be, you may not have the energy at the time to start something new. Maybe that needs to be at some other time. So
Yeah.
it's not about pushing yourself beyond what your actually energy levels are capable at that moment, but you can also start small steps. You can, I mean, there's ways to find something that, you may, for a while I was sewing with two friends together. We did that for a while. I would love to start that again because it was just so fun to just sit and be productive and chat and
I
meet,
love
but
that.
I just currently don't have the time
Mm.
span available to do that. And that's okay. But there, because I'm putting it in somewhere else, but you just picking one thing can help.
Yeah, I think it, and that would be a conversation for, I think, a different time of why we know we know the next steps and we know what's good for us, but why we don't do it. Um, but I think that's a good thing, like understanding the value of who we surround ourselves with, understanding, the importance of our environment and not just our surroundings, but the people.
Now, sometimes what you can do too, not, and you don't have to be a professional for it. You don't need to be a coach like us. Obviously that helps because you learn certain techniques, but you can intentionally shift how, when somebody's too negative, to shift how you can either feed into that and go down the road
Yeah.
in venting and negativity, or you have the choice to, be mindful what words you use and which way you're going to go, and may, shift the other person around more to where you want to go as well. Now that doesn't always work, but
No, no, it doesn't.
it doesn't, but with
But
some,
you could be a good role model.
yeah, but you can also, I'm not saying go out and be super positive and happy out of nowhere, but like the words you choose to respond can also shift again because of the mirror neurons. You can shift somebody's energy by showing up differently. And all, like, or even be sometimes blunt and go, okay, that was great venting, let's talk about something nice.
Yeah.
I've lately done that a lot with, like, I don't want to talk about politics, it's just draining me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I've told people right in the middle of it, I'm like, okay, good, we're done with politics now, I just want to talk about something.
Yeah. Let's talk 5 minutes and vent and then go move
Yeah,
on to
and
something else.
I don't mind saying that like that, in and preventing feeling totally
Yeah.
drained at the
Yeah.
end, because
And angry.
I'm angry because I didn't set the boundaries knowing that it will drain me, right?
Yeah.
So I have no problem saying, hey, you know what? That was good till this point, but I love to talk something else.
So I'm gonna take a left turn.
Sure.
What about our food environment and our gut microbiome? And I mean, we talk about our environment,
Yep.
what surrounds us, but I think how we show up also depends on our energy level, which depends on our food intake and how we are um, energizing
No,
our,
you're
yeah,
right. You're 100% right. Food matters. And with that environment, perfect example is some people need to just not have certain things in the house
yeah,
because it does influence their habits. They know the chocolate cannot be there. The refrigerator, when you open it, cannot have whatever.
sour cream.
in it because you would totally go and indulge the thing like 100% all the way to the bottom. I mean, right there is you set your environment up for healthier eating, and that's what has definitely shown too. And sometimes with family members, right? One may not be eating in a certain way, but has those things there, and it's really hard for the other person to, um, you know, takes too much energy to work against it. So it's really important to set it up in the household in a way that it serves everybody. But so what you have there, if it's very visual, it takes way more energy to resist than not having it there for a
Mhm.
lot of people. So, I mean, some people have no problem with it when they decide, or in my case, I couldn't eat certain things because of sensitivity. I knew if I eat that, I'm gonna have a stomach ache or other pain, then
Yeah.
I'm not tempted to. And it's easier because I know the consequences aren't fun. And so it's easier to resist that. But in other cases, it's good to not just have it in the house. But you're absolutely right that depending on how our environment is set up and what's there, because even you might go in certain, that happens to me oftentimes, we're traveling and I'm in an area and I can't, like, there's
You can't
just
control it.
no restaurant besides fast food restaurants and I can't eat
Yes.
at them, and you have no choice.
Yes. So we went on a trip last summer. It was a road trip, and we were driving from here, California, to Montana. And I mean, there are areas where there's just nothing. And the only food we could get was from a gas station.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm like, I can't eat any of this. They're probably looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm from California and I need a salad or do you have a gluten-free? But it's like I could tell the difference.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. We do know that preservatives, sugar, all those type of things have impact on our emotions as well. And some people more than others. So it's not just pain. Like my case was just that I'm sensitive to certain things, but it does impact the mood and the emotions. And yeah, so sometimes when there isn't a choice, I bring a lot of stuff. I have
Yeah,
to
I
really
travel
think
with a
ahead
lot.
of time, and I'm like, I'm looking where we're driving up. That does not
Hmm.
look good. There's nothing, nothing
Yeah,
on the way, so I got to make sure to to plan
that
ahead of time.
I think that it's interesting, and it's like a more of a social science type thing and not really relevant to this. But you have those food deserts where people don't have access to a lot of food, a lot of healthy food. And I wonder, I mean, I know how it affects them
Yep.
emotionally, physically, and it's sad.
Yeah, no, it is. Your environment has an impact on, depending on where you live, the availability of certain foods. And we do know certain foods aren't good. And if you can't get fresh
Mhm.
or, things that are not totally jacked up with preservatives,
But
that
then you also have like the areas like the farmers and stuff where they have access to all of the fresh
fresh,
food.
yep, you can have all that. Exactly. So
Yeah.
it is a huge difference of where you live and how it impacts your diet. And you sometimes have to, pack or plan differently
Mhm.
and adjust accordingly. So
Yeah.
it does take effort, like all of this. So with that said, there's nobody alike. We're all different. Somebody else may not have any impact as much from their food, and they can go anywhere and just eat whatever from any gas station, and it doesn't impact them. But at the end of the day, it's very individual, and it's first about paying attention, having that awareness, knowing what influences is it the food, is it the space we're living in, is it the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, where and how does it drain me or make me feel particularly good. Work on eliminating something that drains you or change something that drains you. We didn't mention clutter, for example, if it's messy environment, so you might have to clean up one area to feel better. um or also looking into the things that are make you feel positive to get more of that, because it's
Mm,
not always the other way around. Like, so maybe I need more, like you said, stepping outside at a conference on a more frequent basis to feel better
yeah.
and maintain.
It, it's interesting, and it always comes back down to awareness and just notice how you're feeling. Notice how, when you're in an environment, how you're feeling and what could be causing it, and see what can be changed, what can be taken away, what can be added. And I think, taking that first step it's the hardest, but it's
Yeah.
well worth it.
And when we're saying check in with yourself, see if you're tight, if muscles feel tense or if you feel relaxed, how you're breathing. Those are the things to check in. Like, is it a slower breathing, fast breathing? Might want to close your eyes and just check in with yourself. And it may not work right away perfectly. You can actually learn to create better awareness. So you might have to do it more frequently to learn to understand how you feel. So it's not, not every.
Yeah, you could even put like a little reminder
Yep.
on your phone, like check in with yourself and see how you're feeling.
Yep. Now I did that actually. It popped up for me twice a day. Just check in.
Yeah,
I always
I
want
used
to
to
do
do
this
that too.
midday kind of check in to just generally, randomly.
Yeah, and see like,
And you can
okay,
get
what is
really
it?
good at it. You can get
Yeah,
a whole lot better at it. So, with that said, hopefully this was great information to get started. And as always, there is no one size fits all, but there's lots and lots of ways to improve the environment around you to impact your emotional well-being, your decision making, your cognitive, and generally the mental health. So I think that there's a lot of ways that can always be improved and changed in a way that serves us. So with that said, until next time.
good seeing you. Bye.